But
Yeah.
trying to think of a transition. Hey Daniel, do you like cheese in it?
Yes.
Because it's fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So my solo review for this week is the classic animated movie Heavy Metal, which was of course the inspired by the magazine comic book series of the same name. Although in Europe it was called Metal Hurlant.
Metal
Um,
harlot?
Harlant. Thank you.
Huh.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah. What kind of I mean I remember seeing this cover in video stores
Oh
and
yeah, no, all
yeah,
over the place.
yeah, and I remember seeing like occasionally it may pop up on television and I'd see the animation, I kind of go, what is this? This looks weird. um but So I finally got around to watching it. And What was surprising to me was some of the people who were involved in the movie. So it was actually one of the producers of the movie was Ivan Reitman.
Oh.
Yeah, and some of the voice actors in this, John Candy.
Oh yeah, I'd heard about John Candy being in it.
Yeah, he plays several characters in the movie, and then Harold Ramis and Eugene Levy are in there too.
Okay,
Uh,
so there's definitely some connections with that sort of 70s, 80s comedy scene.
right, yeah. Um, but uh, but yeah, so the movie is basically, well, not basically, it is an anthology. Um, it's got I'm trying to remember how many six segments, I think, with a wraparound story to it. And the movie basically revolves around this green orb called the Lochnar, and it's basically it's just pure evil,
Hmm.
and it pops up in all these different stories. And the first story is kind of interesting. It has that uh, kind of like film noir feel to it.
Hmm.
It's about a cab driver in New York who helps out a beautiful woman because she's got the Lochnar, and and I'm convinced that's where Luc Besson got the idea for the Fifth Element because it's very similar. Like the cab driver is even a lot like Bruce Willis in the Fifth Element.
Hmm.
Um, and but yeah, the segments are really interesting. Pretty for the most part. I mean, a couple of them are kind of like, all right. Like the one with the B-52 bombers, which that's kind of the one that people remember. They see that segment, and that's when the theme song Heavy Metal starts playing in the background.
Want my ticket to midnight.
Yeah. um, and But yeah, it's and another segment that I thought was interesting was the one with Captain Stern, who's this like square jawed, he's got the Superman curly, dark hair
Hmm.
curl in it, and he's like, oh ha, ha. But he's just a total scumbag. And he's on trial for all these various horrible crimes. And I'm watching the segment and I'm thinking, is that where Garth Ennis got the idea for Homelander? Because it's a lot like it.
Yeah.
um but the Of course, the one of the segment, I think the two segments I like the most, even though like one of them's kind of weird. Although, well, what am I saying? A lot of the movie's kind of weird. Um, but
Right. You're adapting a sci-fi anthology magazine from the UK, so.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One is this segment where they have this. There's this alien ship shows up over the Pentagon because the aliens have there's these two aliens that have this robot in there who's pretending to be a scientist. He says, "There's no credible evidence that we're the that there is other life in the universe. We're the only ones here." And then you hear the people in the Pentagon really, "Oh, that's great." Yeah, yeah. And then you hear John Kennedy say, "Oh, that's really very reassuring." And they said this as an alien ship is parked over the Pentagon, and then the robot gets sucked up into this tube, and also this buxom woman gets shot up there too, and you have these two aliens and the robot, and then the two aliens are voiced by are Eugene Levy and Harold Ramis, and then the robot's John Candy, and the two aliens just get high on space cocaine, and the robot voiced by John Candy bones the woman.
Daniel, you're saying something that's very confusing to me
Yeah,
because I thought that cartoons were strictly for children.
I know. Yeah. Well,
So
this one definitely isn't.
it is always weird when you run across the odd American uh, cartoon that isn't meant for children. Also, as I'd look it up, I am shocked that Ralph Bakshi was not involved with this.
I know, yeah, because it's definitely in his style. But no, no, he was not involved in this in any way whatsoever. But but the last segment in the movie, which is kind of the standout, and that's the one featuring the poster girl, Tarna. So there's this. So the Lochnar, I guess the Lochnar's powers are kind of like not really clearly defined.
So it's whatever
Um,
the plot needs.
right. So what it does is well, the entire time the way the stories are told is the Lochnar is uh, showing these visions to this little girl whose dad was an astronaut and lands on, who's flying the space shuttle and then lands on the planet in a hot rod in space. It's, whole sequence. Um, and he's presenting the story to her, these stories to her, and then he gets to this last one with Tarna, and because well, I don't necessarily want to spoil it, but the Lochnar goes into this volcano, and then it basically mutates these people and makes them evil, and they go and wipe out this city, and the village elders of this city call for uh, the last Tarakian warrior, and that's Tarna, and of course, you have this great sequence where she's completely naked and swims across a pool, and puts her clothes on because it's very essential to the plot.
It,
um
it was the basis for an entire South Park episode.
yes, it was.
That was the fawn to do bit at the start was an episode where characters would get high on cat urine, and then when they did, they saw heavy metal, but everything was boobs.
Yes. You like my daughter's amazing boobs.
Uh,
Yes, yes. um and yeah, so then so then Tarna gets on her her animal that she flies on is kind of like a somewhere between like a pterodactyl and a uh, can't really you're the
what's the name of the thing again?
I don't remember.
What's the name of her again?
Tarna, Taarna. And so she gets on her, that she flies off to the city, and then of course the city's completely wiped out, so instead of saving them, she has to go on a quest for revenge, and that's basically the rest of that segment is her going after the bad guys.
Okay, so it's basically kind of like a pterodactyl, just stylized.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is time is not really the time period that these stories take place in is never really defined. You really don't know if it's in the future, if it's in the past, or
yeah, what's interesting about this is I found a clearer image of it. It almost looks like it's a pteranodon mixed with an airplane because it has like a tail with two fins on it.
ah. And I didn't notice that when I was watching it, but yeah,
Gee,
wow.
I can't imagine what else in this image would have distracted your attention.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. Interesting thing about Tarna is that she's mute. She never
Hmm.
speaks. Um, but yeah, this movie's. I mean, I can see why people enjoy it. I mean, it definitely has a, a niche to it. If you like sci-fi mixed with some bits of fantasy, like Ralph Bakshi esque animation. You know,
I forget how his name is
Bakshi.
pronounced.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if it's Bakshi or Bakshi. Um,
Bakshi.
okay, yeah. Um, yeah, and if you're not squeamish about nudity or extreme violence, yeah, give this a watch. I would say,
Hmm.
yeah, interesting. Although I haven't heard good things about Heavy Metal 2000. So, but
I mean, okay, I'm going to be mean here because there are some exceptions. Most likely, if a thing came out around the year 2000 and it got the title 2000, it
yes,
isn't good.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's not. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I actually ended up buying it digitally.
Hmm.
I may. I don't know if it's gotten a 4K release yet. I'll have to look into that. If it has, I'll definitely be picking it up. But yeah,
Well, the yeah, I've always been curious to watch it. I just haven't ever gotten around to it for whatever reason.
yeah,
Um, Definitely not a surfeit of taste, but
yeah,
but yeah, it's kind of funny how um, we made a little bit of fun of American Saga for feeling disjointed. Like just make it an anthology if you're if you're not going to tie things together right away.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The good point. Yeah,